Provision for bad debts now in tabular statements. So we have an example. Our debtors are 30,000 and our provision for bad debts at the beginning, so our opening provision for bad debts is 1,800. And at the end of the question, we want to adjust our provision for bad debts to 5% of debtors. So that means the old provision for bad debts is 1,800. Okay, we need to change the provision. So what we'll end up with is the opening plus or possibly minus the adjustment. Okay, ADJUST. Okay, and that's going to give us the closing figure. Okay, so how does that work out in this case? So we have an opening provision of 1,800. We need to look at what our closing figure is going to be, and then we'll be able to work out what our adjustment is. Okay, so if I have a look at this, so we want to adjust to 5% of debtors. So that means our debtors at the moment are 30,000, 5% of that is 1,500. We want our closing figure to be 1,500. So that means we'll need to take away 1,500 subtract, 1,800 subtract 300 gives us the closing figure that we're looking for, which is 500 or 1,500. Okay, so remember that 1,500 is 5% of that. So that means we're going to reduce our provision for bad debts, and that's a bit like us saying that bad debts that we had included as expenses in the past didn't actually happen, so we're going to cancel the expense that we expected to have, which means it becomes an income. So we're going to have an income of €300, which means a plus in P&L of 300. The opposite situation happens here. Okay, we adjust our provision, but it's a 10% of debtors. So 10% of 30 grand, 30 grand is 3 grand. So our provision for bad debt starts off as 1,800 again. Our adjustment in this case, we want to bring it up to 3 grand. So that means we're going to have to add on 1,200. And that brings the figure up to 3 grand. Okay, so that increase in bad debts means we're being more conservative. We're expecting more bad debts, so we're going to have more expenses. So we're going to have expenses of 1,200, which means profit and loss balance, or profit and loss reserve, means the same thing. Profit and loss balance, profit and loss reserve is minus 1,200.